All right, what is up, y'all? My name is Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. I feel like I look like a tourist, but it's just the outfit that I'm wearing. Today is the 3rd of May, plus one more. It's the 4th of May, 2026. Dante's here, my current standard poodle. Okay, he's down here by my feet. This is a video on our main side, one of the 4 sides to In the Image Clothing Company. Really, I'd like to be standing right where Dante is, but what we do here is allow the body to work. Okay, on our main site here, we discuss clothing because it's the only thing physically placed onto the body. Okay, the literal word of anything clothing the body at all is clothing. Okay, hats, glasses, jewelry, tops, pants, socks, shoes, undergarments, whatever it is. Anything placed onto the body is placed onto the body. There's only one way the bones of the body connect, okay, and only one shape and length to the bones. And they connect directly to each other through ligaments. There's a thin layer of cushioning between these bones called cartilage. We just can't wear that out, or else we wear the bones out and the body gets damaged. But this is the thing, is clothing, just the literal word of anything placed onto the body, has nothing to do with fashion. The reason I say I look like a tourist is because I live here, but it looks like I'm from out of town. Okay, in St. George, Utah here. But yeah, anything placed onto the body can really alter its workings. All right, we've got musculature connecting to the bones of the body, and muscles only pull. A couple videos we reference often to give some context here under In the Image Clothing Company's main side are these two, okay? The human body only pulls, and the human body is just mechanics. The human body is just this mechanical machine placed onto this rock in space that is our Earth, and there truly is only one way the human body could ever work. There's no claim or opinion to it. It's just determined by the shape and length of the bones, and they just connect directly to each other. And the body can't ever do anything else besides what it can do. We're going to get more light here. That's why I chose this location, but I also started it right here where I'm, I understand I'm partially shaded by this big rock. Okay, this beautiful sandstone here in St. George, Utah. But the body's just what it is. So this video's title, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, is The Body in Sleeping versus Waking Life. And I'm going to discuss a lot of things here, how the human being isn't any different when we're asleep than it is when we're awake. But we have a lot of approaches to how to get good sleep as human beings. Although we need to just approach the body the same in all aspects of life. It's always the same. And it's always been the same. Being designed in the image of God, in the image of Jesus Christ. We are a clothing company here, like I'm saying. Well, there's this universal human design, and when we clothe the body with anything at all, we can have things like this, oversized clothing. When we've got joints of material of clothing needing to mesh with joints of body parts, like at the edge of the shoulders here, 3 bones come together to become the shoulder, and we've got joints of material of clothing coming together to have a joint at the same location. Oversized clothing, it can get our bodies into chronic patterning. And this is the point. This is what it means to allow the body to work under In the Image Clothing Company here. As we discuss eating, sleeping, as we're doing in this video, standing, sitting, walking, breathing, hydration, everything we do as a human being, but everything we do in our life, we're doing it in and through our clothing. This is one of the big things that sets us apart from things like animals, is we make clothing as human beings and we place it onto our bodies. I understand the surrounding sounds where and if they are, right, blunt, bold, raw, and real In the Image Clothing Company. We just do it as we do it here, okay? As if you're actually here with us, just, hearing us deliver this information. Because we'll be doing a lot of in-person events as time progresses and things like this. Living up Utah as we do, the state of Utah here in the United States of America. Being based here in St. George, Utah, there's a lot of beautiful nature, that we do a lot in where we do. So, yeah, and things for the environment as well. But the point is, with the clothing being oversized, well, the body just has to continue to work the only location that the joints are. The bones join together, and that's where the motion is. Bones by themselves are just essentially like a stick. They're just immovable. They can't do anything until a bone connects to another bone. And where these bones connect or join together, that's where the motion happens. And so oversized clothing, it just damages the body. The body has neutral positions. Like the wrist here, you can see, just determined by the shape and length of all the bones in the fingers, all the way up to the elbow and the whole forearm. all the musculature stemming from the elbow before we can ever come to the fingertips, or stemming at the fingertips before we can ever have an elbow, okay, on either end. There truly is only one way the human body could ever work, and it resides in its neutral positions. It's like the wrist here. It can go down from the neutral, or it can come up from the neutral. It's like the elbow sitting at the natural waist, above the hip bones, but below those lowest ribs. The bottom end of this upper arm bone is the elbow, but the top end of the upper arm bone is the shoulder. And so if the elbow comes up, the shoulder comes up. If the elbow goes down, the shoulder goes down. They share the same immovable by itself bone, just this upper arm bone we call the humerus. The body just resides in its neutrals. The Earth's gravity, it's got a vertical pull, and then we've got this horizontal surface to the Earth, and this is a 90-degree angle, a perpendicular right angle, just different words there to describe the same thing mathematically. And that's what I mean with the human body is just mechanics. We've got measurable degrees of hinges, levers, and rotations in the body, determined by just how the bones connect and then they move with each other, by the muscles. Muscles only pull, so we've got muscles that pull to close a hinge joint, like the elbow, but then we've got opposing muscles of the same function that pull to extend a hinge joint. We don't actually push as a human being, we can't. And so we have to understand this with the human being. Everything we do in our life, we have to understand the only way our bodies can have motion is by the muscles pulling. It's an electrical system sent from the brain. Okay, these electrical signals out to the muscles tell the muscle fibers to fire, get closer together. So, there we go, Dante moved. Now I have a little bit of a better spot to stand here. Okay, so our muscles only pull, and they just pull directly in line where they connect to a bone through a tendon on one end, and then they connect to a bone through a tendon on the other end, and they just pull and directly in line. That's all the muscles of the body could do, is pull. And so we pull on either side of a function to stabilize. In the center, we pull from the neutral, and now we're stable. Okay, either side of a function pulls from the neutral. That's how the body works. So the big thing is, residing in our neutral positions in our bodies. And this is the deal with that, is God designed the body to work. The human being, why we have this mechanical machine we have that's placed onto this rock in space we call Earth, is for it to take us across the Earth. Before we had any kind of inventions as human beings, our bodies are all we had to just walk places, to move, right? Our bodies being just a mechanical machine, they make mechanical machines like cars or bicycles, things like this, right? So there's only one way the human body could ever work. But if we place clothing onto it, like I said, oversized clothing, that's a big deal. It can damage the body. And we can get into what we call chronic patterning, where a pattern in the body is just like walking. The arms swinging forward and back, this is a pattern of just nice, even forward and back swinging. The legs swinging forward and back as we walk, it's just a pattern of nice, even forward and back swinging. But if our bodies are trying to work around the only thing physically placed on them all day, every day, the literal word of clothing our bodies with anything at all, whatever it could possibly be placed onto the body, our bodies can get into deep chronic patterning, okay? And so over time, we get scar tissue built up and bone spurs built up. Because you look at babies and toddlers, and their bodies just work. They've got all the motion in their bodies that's just naturally there, right? Full range of motion, as the video's titled here under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. There's just a full range to all the motion in the body, and then bones hit into each other, and it's impossible to go anywhere else, right? Bones hit to bones, and you're done. All the way closed at a joint, and bones hit to bones, and you're done, all the way open at a joint. As long as we're residing in our neutral positions and just having our bodies work, activated as a whole. Just all together. It's nothing to get to, though, because it happened as a baby, it happened as a toddler, but then over time we get into chronic patterning. Like I'm saying, there's no possible opinion to it. People have all sorts of approaches on how to get the human being to do something, but that's physically impossible unless we were to change the shape and length of the bones and how they connect to each other. But over years and years getting into chronic patterning, we've got things like bone spurs building up where the muscles connecting to the bones to just pull the bones to move them, like closing the hand. If the wrist isn't neutral, like an oversized top, for example, Pulling the shoulder down pulls the hand down because the hand's the other end of the shoulder. When we lock the hand out from the shoulder by straightening the elbow between the two, the hand and the shoulder will do the exact same thing. Rotation-wise, both internal rotation or external rotation from the neutral. But then anywhere the hand goes, the shoulder goes, if we have the elbow between them, straightened. Just locked out straight at the elbow joint. These three bones meeting to become the elbow, right? The upper arm bone, the humerus, and then the two bones in the forearms, the radius and the ulna. Okay, anyway, the whole body just does what the rest of it does. Everywhere any part of the body goes, all of it comes. And so this is what I'm saying is chronic patterning. If our bodies aren't tracking in line and they're only neutral positions, just the shape and length of the bones connecting to each other, then the muscles will pull on the bones in an unnatural position, and the bones will actually grow excessively, and this can happen in places like our pinky finger and our elbow and on our head, on the side of our head here, and on our nose and in our jaw and our knee area, and the hips, all throughout the body though. But the thing is, this is what's happening, is chronic patterning. This is why people's bodies aren't working, and no kind of exercise or, workout routine type thing will ever get your body to work. If your body's not just residing in its only functioning neutral positions, just tracking the only way the bones mesh together, well, then it just can't work. And the only thing physically placed onto the body is just what we label as something we are clothing the body with. The way that God clothes the fields with grass, and there's not really fields of grass all that commonly here in St. George, Utah, in the Mojave Desert, but, just plants growing out of the ground, they're clothing the ground. So we clothe our bodies with things, and then as our bodies are trying to work around these things, that's where this patterning gets built up in the body. So anyway, like I said, the oversized clothing, that's just not having joints of material of clothing meshing with joints of body parts that can really damage the body. But we've got all sorts of things that are, all sorts of things we could possibly discuss, just smaller things in clothing, if you will, like physical size-wise, zippers, one side's interlocking over the other, and so we're just not even on either side when there's two sides to the body. Buttons, pockets, seams, anywhere that's just different and not centered, or rotated seams, with robots truly stitching our clothing in modern 2026, right? Today's the 4th of May, 2026. In the Image Clothing Company's main side, the body in sleeping versus waking life. So we've got all these things that could possibly alter the body for day after day, year after year, decade after decade, placed onto our bodies. If these things aren't centered or neutral or normally sitting on our bodies can be very, very damaged. Then we've got things like ropes introduced to the body, shoelaces or drawstrings. Yeah, you tie one side of anything over the other side of something, and you twist the entire body. And this can be even just like a long sleeve top placed around the waist, tied one side over the other. You're just not wearing it at the time, and so you put it around your waist to hang it there. Anything at all you could possibly tie in, well, not in necessarily, but on or around the body with a knot. We have to be very intentional, but we have to know these things first. We just don't know what we don't know, and we can't be held accountable for what we don't know, but we're damaging our bodies greatly over time. Right, these things take time, and we get deep, deep patterning built up into our bodies. So this is what we are. This is who we are. This is your intro still, okay? Under In the Image Clothing Company, we allow the body to work, and this is how and this is why we're a clothing company. Our whole company is about the human body. We discuss the anatomy of the human body in depth, and we allow it to work. We give a lot of free modifications in just the literal wording of clothing, anything physically placed onto our bodies to not alter our bodies. And we discuss all the things we do in life, and we do things, in other ways as well. But the focus is getting to the human body, and we have to do that through the only thing physically placed on it, clothing it. Just the literal word of clothing the body with anything. Can't damage the body. So when it comes to sleeping life versus waking life, well, we've always got to mesh our bodies with Earth's vertical gravity pull. Okay, the horizontal surface to Earth is always there. You can go up a hill, but only from this neutral horizontal surface. Or you can go down a hill, but only from this neutral horizontal surface. The bottom of our feet, for example, are neutral from lifting the toes up dorsiflexion, or pointing the toes down, plantar flexion, at the horizontal surface of the earth, you know, just like me standing here. I mean, I'm on this uneven sandstone rock, but the bottom of my feet are just horizontal, you know, with the horizontal surface of the earth to have the rest of my body neutral. So, the thing with sleeping is it's the same as waking life, right? We can't approach sleeping in a different way than we approach standing. If we want to stand with what we call good posture in daily life, just, you know, there's no such thing as posture unless you were to change the shape and length of the bones. They only connect how they do. And the body really does have this even opposing mathematical bending from bottom to top just to stay vertical on Earth's vertical gravity pull. We bend back and forth opposing this pull of gravity. The ankles bend backward, the knees bend forward, the hips bend backward, the low back bends forward, the mid back bends backward, and the upper back, which is just the neck or the cervical spine, it bends forward. Just even back and forth and back and forth and back and forth up the body in the way it bends, just to stay vertical. We hang our arms down at our sides with Earth's gravity just pulling them down, and the fingertips are just this pendulum from the other end of the arm, from the shoulder. Okay, and our bodies are just neutral when we're just standing up. Standing truly is the most restful state that a human being could have. Even more restful than sleeping. Laying down on our back, for example, or just on our side even, but just horizontal. The body's bones stack vertically. And so we use the least amount of musculature to even do things like breathing when we're standing, because the bones can support each other by just stacking up on top of each other. Just like my arm, you know, if I just push straight down with my arm, I've just got these bones stacking. But if you lay down, it's just different. Even just the pull of gravity, if nothing else, you know, is different on the body. But our bodies don't have only just this front to back bending with Earth's vertical gravity pull. Left to right, we've got a center line. There's a center to Earth's vertical gravity pull. There's a center line to the human being, left to right. The sternum, the spine, the trachea, the nose, and our jaw. The jaw stabilizing the entire body, and not only just the head. These are some things that I mention as the founder of the Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong, being in the center line of the body, because they are. In this universal human design, every body who has one and everyone who has a body, it's all the same. Now, you can be different, but only from something can you be different, and there is a universal human design. So you've got a different body, let's say. We address this if and where is needed, if you see what I'm saying. Amputation, deformity, birth defect, major surgery, anything like this or not like this at all, but that sets your body apart a little bit. Well, apart from the universal human design, we all have to get as close as we can to, within our own physical functioning and ability to just work. Even breathing, you know, takes the entire body to some degree to stabilize in every breath we take. Yeah, to get as close as we can to the universal human design, yikes, choking up, is what we have to do. You know, getting out of chronic patterning is what I'm saying. Just getting the body to be able to work as well as we can, for it to work as well as we can. That's all I'm really saying with that. Right. It only does what it does. And so there's a lot we can do within our own individualistic situations, is what I'm saying. You know, to have our bodies work better if we're not doing all that we can currently. And standing up, yeah, I mean, there's just this neutral centered position to the body. All right. The jaw, for example, having musculature coming up to the crown of the head and out to the edges of the shoulders. Okay, the jaw is the shoulder, is a video's title here under the Image Clothing Company's main side. The jaw connects directly to the shoulder, but it goes through the collars of our tops. Look at this. See the collar of my top move as I just contract the musculature of my jaw? So, keeping collars centered and the importance of snug collars are two videos here, video titles under the Image Clothing Company's main side, but just huge focuses in daily life. Having a nice even circumference or circular nature around the collar of our top, because it's going around the neck. And the spine's in the center of the neck with the musculature connecting on either side to it, evenly opposing the center of the neck. Right. Gravity, it's got the same effect on our clothing that it has on our bodies, and gravity's always pulling down on everything that's on the Earth's surface the same. So chronic patterning, right? It will get built up in the body from things like imbalanced collars. and all sorts of anything we could possibly discuss placed onto the body that's just not allowing it to work properly, just physically in its way. Okay, so what we have with sleeping versus waking life is gravity. Okay, that's a big deal. And we also still have the bones of the body just being connected the same exact way, whether you're sleeping or sleeping, right? I think I just said sleeping or sleeping. It doesn't matter if you're asleep or if you're awake. The body works the exact same. Okay, we still breathe the exact same. The rib cage needs to expand and contract. The ribs are bones surrounding our lungs. We breathe in, and the whole rib cage, these bones connecting from the center line of the body in the front, wrapping around the whole torso of the body here and connecting into the spine and the center line of the rear of the body. They are bendable bones that cage our lungs, and our lungs are like balloons, right? Essentially, something that can hold air. We breathe oxygen in and we breathe carbon dioxide out. Just this exchange of gases happening, right? Muscles contract. We open this void space and air rushes into our lungs. And as this is happening, we have an expansion of 360 degrees, just meaning all the way around. Our rib cage will naturally fully expand and then fully contract every breath we take, with the whole body stabilizing to some degree as it's happening, as long as there's nothing physically in its way, restricting its ability to fully expand, and just not allowing it to work, not allowing us to get a full breath in. Well, that's what I'm saying is, in waking or sleeping life, the body works the exact same. And so when it comes to breathing, the thing with sleeping is we're laying on our rib cage, right? When you're standing up in daily life, your rib cage, if your clothing isn't in the way, right, it can just expand and contract, and you can breathe in and out just evenly and fully with nothing altering your body's ability to fully breathe. But now we're laying down sleeping, and the body still breathes the exact same, although now you have the weight of your body laying on and against your rib cage, right? And the thing with the rib cage is, in the center of it, there's the spine. All these little bones stacking, these vertebrae, to make up the spine and all the movement the spine has, front to back and left to right. Ideally, very little twisting or torsion, on the spine. The rotations in the body come from the shoulders and the hips. The spine connects the shoulders and the hips. The spine should stay pretty well locked in place, if you will. We filmed a video 2 days ago here under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, my current standard poodle Dante and I, titled, "What Really Causes Spine Tension?" There's a lot of context in that video about similar things of what I was saying right there. The spine needs to stay straight, even, centered, stable, meshing with Earth's vertical gravity pull, and we're breathing, and the rib cage, encapsulating the lungs, connects into the spine evenly on either side, left or right, to the center line of the body of the spine. So when we're sleeping, this is what I'm saying. This video is titled, the 4th of May, 2026, In The Image Clothing Company's main side, "The Body in Sleeping versus Waking Life." Well, it's the same in the way the body functions when we're asleep as it is when we're awake. Although physically the positions we're in while we're asleep can very easily become different than when we're awake. So breathing is a huge point, man. Yeah, breathing's a huge point, because if there's something just placed against our rib cage, our bed, whatever it is you're sleeping on the ground, you're sleeping on a mat or a pad on the ground, you're sleeping on an actual bed, or wherever you're sleeping, anything at all, you're laying down though, you're going to have weight pressing into your rib cage on whatever part of your body you're laying on. You're laying on your back, there's weight against your back. You're laying on your side, there's weight against your side, and this is directly against your rib cage. Even if you were to sleep on your stomach, and we'd have to talk about that anatomy-wise, how to do that in a natural position, and if we can, but anyway, yes, right, just meaning no matter what part of your body you're laying on, you've got weight against your rib cage, and it's not able to fully expand in that location. It just couldn't. You've got the weight of your whole body just laying on your rib cage. It can't fully expand in that location the same way it could just standing evenly with Earth's vertical gravity pull meshing with our centered line of our spine, and then just breathing. and both sides of our rib cage just being able to move, right? These rib bones, they're bones of the body that actually do move some, well, and quite a lot too. You know, they bend naturally. Yeah, it's just not going to happen quite the same when you're asleep. So this is the thing, you know, when we're sleeping, we have to just imagine we're standing up. Really, anatomy-wise, as far as the way the bones of the body connect and mesh, and the way the body functions, the only way it ever possibly could, is no opinion of ours, right? It's God's design. The only end is to allow God's design of the human being to work. We'll never get it to do anything. The heart beats by itself, the lungs breathe by themselves, as we're discussing here, even asleep. This is what I mean. We couldn't take credit for this stuff. It's happening while we're asleep. You know, the eyes blink by themselves, the body will heal itself when it gets cut. This is God just orchestrating everything. Nothing happens unless it does, and so someone's doing all of this. Who could we possibly give credit to, right? If it's not God. Well, it is God, is the point. What I'm saying is, we don't have any kind of say or approach on how to decide how our bodies will sleep the best, for example, or how they'll do anything the best. They only do what they do. But this is why we just discuss it as we do. A video's title here under In the Image Clothing Company's main side is Anatomy Understanding versus Fitness Advice. And we can have every, and all the advice we could ever possibly come up with on how to approach our bodies to have them function well, but it doesn't matter if we don't just understand how the body works. The body's always worked the exact same, and it always will work the exact same. In order for God to even word it as He designed us in His image, He had to first look like us. And God, also being called the truth, is the same yesterday, today, and forever, just meaning unchanging. That's the case for anything in life ever that is true. It always was, and anything that is true always will be. Things are just what they are. Truth is apart from all of us. We don't get to decide or change truth as human beings. And one of those truths, as a human being, is that we didn't design the body. It only does what it does, and it only sleeps how it sleeps. And it sleeps the same way it stands. Really. You know, the human being. If we're looking at posture, okay, again, there's no such thing as posture. There couldn't possibly be. It's mathematically, mechanically, truly, literally impossible to train posture. We've got even mathematical opposing bends from Earth's vertical gravity pull, determined by the shape and length of the bones of the body, that don't ever do anything besides what they do. Okay, so if we never altered the body, well, it was designed by God to work. We get our bodies very altered as time progresses, just as I did, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong. There's a video here under In the Image Clothing Company's main side titled, It Took Me 2 Years. And it's taken me about 2 years, give or take, maybe a little bit longer, but, you know, right around 2 years, yeah, to get out of the chronic patterning my body personally got into, doing just about all the same things we say to not do, to allow the body to work under In the Image Clothing Company, even though I personally founded it, you know, or not doing all the things that we say we need to be as intentional about doing as we can under In the Image Clothing Company. Yeah, I mean, I was making all the same mistakes and not being intentional about just about all the same things, right? Just about, at least, with those things, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. And so my body has really, really, really changed. Just only back to normal, really. You know, we discuss the human body's only normal often here under In the Image Clothing Company. We've got a normal amount, the heart beats per minute, okay? The normal amount, the lungs breathe per minute. The normal temperature for the body, 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit, always. And the body just regulates these things. A normal amount of fat content versus muscle mass in the body to have a healthy balance. A normal amount of liquid in the body, you know, water to lubricate the body versus the amount of food in the body to fuel the body, and just a healthy balance of all these things. There's only a normal to the human being. That's it, you know. We can work out and gain all the excessive muscle size, muscle mass, hypertrophy, or strength, you know, that we want. But once you stop excessively working your body, it always goes back to your own personal, individual human body's only normal. There's no opinion to these things. This is the truth about this body we didn't design, and we have no say over how it works. But anyway, good posture, right? We're standing up vertically, whether it's vertical gravity pulse just pulling down on us. We just have these even mathematical opposing bends in the body from bottom to top. Now let's try to sleep. Take this body standing up nice and straight and just flop it straight back down onto the ground, right? We just lean backward is what I'm saying. You just fall straight onto your back, right? Well, when we sleep, we need the same, what you could call posture, but just the same positioning in the body, fully unconscious, asleep. Dante is sleeping right here at my feet. My doggy here, my standard poodle, right? But the body needs to be in the same position then, sleeping, as it is waking. It only does what it does. The bones still always connect to each other, just the only way they do, no matter if the body's, lifting weight as we're carrying things places, awake, or if we're sleeping, subconscious, unconscious, right? It's the same thing. It's the same bones. It's the same muscles. It's the same breathing function. It's the same digestion happening with our food. It's the same brain function and the same arteries, veins, and capillaries pumping blood through our bodies. It's all the same thing. It's the same position. The human body is about a position because you can't even focus on the musculature of the body at all until there's first bones of the body for the muscles to attach to. The bones of the body always come first. There's no possible opinion to that. Meaning, so many people will try to tell you how to approach the musculature of your body to get your body to work better. The muscles can't go anywhere besides the bones that are already there that the muscles connect to through tendons. Wherever the bones are is where the muscles go. The muscles don't determine where the bones go. It can't happen. That one end has to come first, and it's the thing that the other thing attaches to. The bones are always there of the human being. The skeletal system, or the bones of the body, the bone system of the body, it's all connected just as one thing already through ligaments before you could ever have muscles attached to those bones. The body's always about a position. It's about a frame, just like building a building. It's about building a frame, and then you can add things to it. The frame of the building is like the bones of the body. And then all the things you add to the frame of the building is like the muscles being added to the bones of the body. Yeah, it's about the bones. There's no opinion to it. There's no approach to the human being. It's impossible to have one. It has nothing to do with me, but we just either understand it or we don't. It's God's design. As I say, don't believe me, Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. Don't believe any of our team members with any of our information, even any of our poodles, if you see what I'm saying, right? Under In the Image Clothing Company, what I'm saying is no matter what we're saying or anyone ever is saying, truth is truth. It's apart from all of us. And so if we can just align what we're discussing and understanding and doing as human beings with truth, then it's truth. The truth is there's a universal human design. There's only one way the body works. So how does it? Well, we get down to that here under In the Image Clothing Company, and there's no possible opinion or dispute to the basis of what we're saying here because, we discuss things in such depth, there's no way you could possibly say we're saying something that isn't correct, as long as we're saying things that are correct. If you can see what I'm really saying, just meaning the body's about a position. Okay, it's about the bones, and when we're sleeping, it's no different. So you take this good standing posture, if you will. Okay, I've got good posture. It's not a bragging thing, but just as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, my body works well now, okay, as the 4th of May, 2026, at least, as of now, right? Yes, that's the point, right? Practicing what we preach, really preaching what we have practiced here under In the Image Clothing Company. That's how we know what we're talking about and can discuss it so thoroughly. If we just stand straight up and then just lay straight back onto our back, we just need this position to remain while we're sleeping because of breathing, if nothing else. And it's everything in the body, but that's one of the things that we can see so easily, or one of the most easily seen things, is breathing. Breath is the essence of human life. Breath is a physical motion, okay? This jaw stabilizing the entire body, not only does it do that, but it also, in addition to stabilizing the entire body, eats and speaks and breathes. These are functions the human being's jaw, and the jaw of the dogs and any animals that it does as well, plays for the entire body, right? Over on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, another one of our fourths, where we specialize in purebred, standard size poodles, right? The large size of the breed of the poodle. But we give information that applies to all dogs on what we title Letting Dogs Stay Natural. It's the same thing we do here on In the Image Clothing Company's main side for us as human beings, with allowing the body to work being our slogan. We've got a lot of things going on with dogs, just being these domesticated animals. And I'll talk about more of that if I do in this, but there you go, there's some context. The thing is, our jaw as a human being, right? It's stabilizing our breathing, it's stabilizing our entire body. Our lungs are breathing, and as this is happening, our lungs expanding and contracting, our rib bones are moving, and as this is happening, our rib bones connecting to our spine, and the spine is our vertical support from our hips up to the base of the skull on Earth's vertical gravity pull. There's no other bones that support the body vertically from the hips to the base of the skull besides the spine. And as we breathe in fully, there's a video here under In the Image Clothing Company's main site titled The Diaphragms of the Neck. And we've got muscles that pull up from some of these upper ribs and back to the bones of the neck, the cervical spine, and that fully opens our rib cage. And as we get a full breath in, the ribs expand in the front. That's just how it works. There's cartilage connecting the bones of the ribs to the sternum in the front of the body in a different way than it happens in the rear, connecting the bones of the ribs to the spine. So the motion of expanding the rib cage comes mostly from the front, of the rib cage. The rib cage expands up and back, and then our spine straightens. So that's what I'm saying. Having what we could call good posture, well, it means you're going to be able to have a full breath as well. Because as we straighten our spine up, we open our rib cage up also. Okay, so now sleeping in what we could call good posture, we can breathe as we sleep. And like I'm saying, sleeping is the same thing physically, functionality-wise for the human being as anything in waking life as well. The body's always stabilizing all of it just to breathe, but just to function, even just digesting food and everything the body does. And the body always has all of it working, even when we're asleep. So, like I'm saying, right, the human body can only ever work all together. It's all there. We can't have parts of the body trying to compensate or make up for the role of other things in the body that aren't working, because everything's got a different function. It's got a different role to play, and it's all got to play into itself and each other, if you will. So, while we're sleeping, it's no different. But while we're sleeping, we've got a lot of ways that this can become more of a problem. Like I'm saying, standing, there's nothing leaning against our rib cage. Unless we're actually like leaning up against a wall and pressing our ribs into it. You're not pushing against your ribs standing or just doing things in daily life. Most all the time you'd never be doing that quite to the degree that you could be while you're asleep, is what I'm saying. But the body still has to breathe just the same while we're asleep. So we stand vertically in daily life, but we sleep essentially vertically, but then just take that same position and just drop it down horizontal. Okay, and that's how we sleep. Is the body still nice and neutral at the spine? Because I'm neutral here with good posture. Like I'm saying, there's no claim, no sales pitch, no new information, nothing like this we could take credit for under In the Image Clothing Company. When we just discuss how the human body works, it's no opinion of any human beings. It's designed by Jesus Christ. It only is what it is. I didn't design my body. I can't decide how it works, and that's the case for every body, the literal wording, right? Every body who has one and everyone who has a body, it only does what it does. So, the 4th of May, 2026, and the Image Clothing Company's main site, this video here, the body in sleeping versus waking life. Well, yeah. Good posture, if we're calling it that. It's just the arms hanging down at the sides with Earth's gravity. And now the spine is neutral from front to back, from left to right. And in all the ways, And this is coming from the jaw, and this is coming from just all the even opposing musculature from front to back and left to right in the body, just stabilizing the body in its neutral position, right? And so this is the same when we're asleep. The thing is, you're not going to get a good night's sleep no matter what you try to do. You go to a sleep specialist. Well, there's an if to this, by the way, you can get a good night's sleep to the degree you can in your own situation. That's what this video is for, is how to, really, under In the Image Clothing Company's main site, right? The 4th of May, 2026. the body in sleeping life versus waking life. Well, it's the same thing. And yeah, you can go to a sleep specialist, or you can have all this advice that anyone could ever possibly give you on how to try to get a good night's sleep through supplemental things or things to add, not only supplemental things you could ingest, like eating supplements or drinking things supplementally, or sounds to sleep with, or certain temperatures, or, a certain type of bed, or whatever. All of these things, bedtime routine before you go to sleep. You could do anything and everything you could ever possibly think of to do. But if you try to go to sleep and your body, which is just this physical thing, a physical body, a mechanical machine placed onto this physical rock in space that is our Earth, if it's not in its only neutral positions, just determined by the shape and length of the bones, you'll never get a good night's sleep. It'll be impossible. To the degree that you can get your body into a neutral position, you have to, because neutral is Earth's gravity pulling down on us. That's what I'm saying. There's no possible opinion to it. We have these even opposing mathematical bends in the body from bottom to top, from the ankles up to the cervical spine, right? Back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. The body's only about a position. That's all it could ever possibly be mechanically. The body's just a mechanical machine. And so you'll never possibly get a good night's sleep if your body's not in its neutral there's no possible opinion to it, but position, right? While you're asleep. And how's that going to either be allowed to happen or potentially be restricted? Well, the only thing physically placed onto your body will determine its physical positioning. Directly. The literal word of clothing the human being with anything. So here we are under In The Image Clothing Company's main side on the 4th of May, 2026. This video's title, right? I don't want to hurt this rock for the sake of the natural nature of it. Okay. But yeah, the title is The Body in Sleeping versus Waking Life. The thing is, there you go, natural, neutral, and normal. Synonyms, meaning they mean the same thing. Within how the human body works and the bodies of the dogs over on In The Image Clothing Company poodles and just life, it's natural, there's no opinion to natural. Matter, just what everything's made up of on a small little level, when you break everything down to the smallest form of what everything's made up of, it can't be created or destroyed. God made everything that's here, and then it's here. And there you go. Our bodies are literally only the earth. We eat plants that grow from the earth, or we eat animals that ate plants that grew from the earth, and the earth becomes the human being. Then our bodies die and decompose back into the earth. Anyway, the goal is natural. On all four sides of In The Image Clothing Company, there's no possible opinion that can matter to how the human body works. It's something that's always worked or doesn't, and it always will just work or it doesn't. Every generation of human beings, every give or take 100 years, we just cycle through human beings. An entirely new planet population of human beings inhabits this earth every just about 100 years. No one that was here before is here, and it's just all new people. What I'm saying is it's always just what it is. There's no way we can try to have a breakthrough on the human being. It's only what it is, and it always only ever will be. It's designed by someone who is not us. It's designed by Jesus Christ, right? There's no opinion to our bodies just growing by themselves, and only doing what they do. And why I'm so hard hitting on stuff like that is because we don't have an opinion. Just to be so clear, under In The Image Clothing Company, we're not selling an idea. We're not selling anything. We'll be selling good clothing products only to allow the body to work. We'll always have good clothing once we start selling it, but because it'll stay centered, fit correct, and be made in all the ways we can from 100% natural materials, the only thing that was ever possible for clothing to be made out of until just tens of years ago from today's date, the 4th of May 2026, when unnatural, artificial, synthetic materials that get invented by human beings started to be made into clothing. Right, so yeah, there's only natural. There's no possible opinion. Alright? Anyway, what I'm saying is, same with how the human being sleeps. That's what I mean. Just how the human body functions. It only does what it does. It has nothing to do with me that I could decide or change or have some kind of breakthrough on. but I am the founder of In the Image Clothing Company. We just discussed this extremely thoroughly, just the body, of the human being. And I'll be doing this the rest of my entire lifetime, right? So this is a beautiful documentation. The human body in sleeping life, it's just got to do the same thing the human body does in waking life. Okay. Now, we just take the position the body's in, standing, and we lay it down. We go straight from vertical to horizontal. And now you're asleep. And now your body's still able to physically, position-wise, work the same as it could when you're awake. All the areas where the blood gets pumped through the body are still in their same open position, and things aren't pinched off excessively. The circulatory system, pumping blood through the body. The body's lungs can still just breathe, like when you're standing, to the best degree that we can have the body's rib cage not be restricted by laying on it when we sleep. The body can still digest food properly while we're sleeping. If it's still in just about the same position, and, gravity is going to be pulling on us differently when we're laying down horizontal than when we're standing up vertical, because we eat things at the top end of our body's digestive system at the mouth, and it goes down with Earth's gravity out the rectum, we urinate it out as well. It goes from bottom to top, right? The things we eat and drink with Earth's gravity, but sleeping is sleeping. We sleep, we have to sleep, it's a natural thing, but only if we can do it in a natural way. There's only one position the body sleeps in. There's no possible way you will ever get a good, natural, regular, rested night sleep, or day sleep. Maybe you stay up at night and sleep in the day. It's kind of backward for the body's natural circadian rhythm, messing with the sun. But, some people do stuff like that. I'm just saying, you're never going to sleep naturally. If your body isn't, in your own individual situation, as best as you can have it be, in its own neutral, just the way the bones connect. I mean, that's the point. So, there's a lot more that we can and will say in this video besides just that. Just take your body from a good standing position and just lay it down and sleep like that. But a big point is, why isn't that happening? Well, muscles only pull, right? As we discussed, muscles only contract. We've just got opposing muscles that pull. Pull to extend or pull to close, hinge joints in the body, with the rotations between. Anyway, there's only one way the human body could ever work. There's no opinion to it. There's not. And the big deal is, muscles only pulling. Well, it's things like stretch in clothing that just didn't even exist until tens of years ago from today's date. Like I'm saying, the 4th of May, 2026 is today's date. But, there was just no such thing as stretch in clothing. And stretch just goes the opposite direction of the only way the muscles of the body work. Muscles pull together, stretch goes apart, right? And so the only thing physically placed onto our body is just the literal wording of clothing our bodies with anything that stretches. Well, it's new. It's something human beings didn't even have the possibility to deal with just even tens of years ago from, like I'm saying, today's date, around this time period, the 4th of May, 2026. But also, you're not going to be able to function in the body, all right? So, any kind of stretch that you're wearing in clothing, don't ever in waking or sleeping life. But, soft beds almost kind of essentially stretch. There's an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, another one of our fourths, where what we do is we have discussions on the gospel of Jesus Christ. You don't have to be religious or believe in anything in the slightest bit, but we're all human beings. We're placed on the same earth. We're designed by the same God. It is what it is. As I'm saying, generation after generation, we just deal with different problems in the same ways, or the same problems in different ways. We're extremely similar. So much so that there's a universal human design, right? It only is what it is. And so what I'm saying is, we're on episode 204 of In the Image Clothing Company podcast as of today's date, the 4th of May, 2026. But there's an episode titled Firm Ground. And we just have deep insights on life, right? It applies to every body, the literal wording, everyone, right? Every body who has one, or everyone who has a body. All the human beings, black, white, and and anything else in between. You know, man and woman, and those are the only two genders, but right. Anyway. Firm Ground is an episode title of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And you can see this here in St. George, Utah. There's a lot of rock, right? We live in the Mojave Desert here. It's just this red rock. It's just rock, you know. But the ground is just firm. Even just dirt is firm. Even sand is very firm. Even though it can move, you know, and the grains of sand can move away from each other. And, you know, there's motion to the sand. It's very firm. You know, like when you step onto it. Firm ground. The ground's always firm. The body is actually very firm. When the body's working, the muscles contract and they get firmer. You know, you press onto a muscle that's not contracted, you know, or really like doing more work than just naturally resting to stabilize the entire body altogether. But if we activate a muscle more than just its resting position, it gets more firm. Wow, holy cow. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah. Yikes. No, that's funny. Funny. It's funny. Yeah, a muscle, it gets more firm. I am flexing my arm so you can see. That's what I'm saying. You press on a muscle that's not like activated all the way, let's say, right? Like flexing your bicep here. It's relatively soft. There's a lot of pliability to muscle. The thing is, this is what I'm saying. When we get into chronic patterning with scar tissue and bone spurs building up in the body, scar tissue is just regular pliable tissue that's toughened up because it's not allowed to work properly. Like things just not allowed to track in line, you know, because clothing, right? The only thing physically placed onto the body, the literal word of something clothing our bodies, that we're trying to have to work around, the body will get damaged because it's just not able to work. The only way the body does work, determined by the shape and length of the bones that connect directly to each other through ligaments. And then again, yes, right, the muscles, they only pull and directly in line, connecting to bones through tendons. Anyway, that's what I'm saying. We contract a muscle. I am going to flex my bicep for this, just to really show this. And it gets firm. What I'm saying is that's the body working. The more the body works, the more exertion and energy and effort the body puts into doing something, the more functional the body is what I'm saying. You know, is when it's contracted at the musculature, the muscle gets firmer. You know, so what I'm saying is that's how the body works the best, actually, is solid, right? Like the ground. Yeah, so there's a lot of things like really squishy shoe soles, these man-made shoes onto our God-made feet. You know, we need very nice and firm shoe soles because the ground's firm and God designed the human being to walk on the firm ground. That was a lot of the basis of the episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. And things within the gospel of Jesus Christ as well, and how that makes sense, you know, building our foundations on something firm, the rock of Jesus Christ, you know, and we build our foundation from there. It's unshakable, right? God never changes, and so what our foundation's built on, if it's something that never changes, then there you go. You're set. Truly. Right? But what I'm saying is, we sleep on a lot of soft beds as human beings, where we do, you know, in modern 2026 and going forth, you know, around this time, there's so many soft beds. There's so many bed manufacturers, you know, mattress manufacturers that are trying to come up with all these ideas of how to make this perfect bed. Well, are you sleeping within stretchy clothing on top of that perfect bed? And your body can never possibly mechanically, mathematically, like truthfully even work within stretchy clothing. Stretch pulls away and the muscles of the body to allow the body to do anything at all, even breathe or just digest food. The muscles pull together, you know. So yeah, anyway, are you sleeping within stretchy clothing? Well, then you're going to probably feel like you need to have some kind of excessively great bed material thing, like some kind of advancement, you know, in technology in a bed. But the thing is, the body actually sleeps the best on firm ground. When we talk about, you know, how there's differences where there are, to a degree. I mean, it's the same thing in most every way. The body of a man versus the body of a woman. But there are differences in certain ways. The pelvis is shaped slightly different. You know, the reproductive organs are different. And You know, very, very slight things are different between men and women, but the functionality of the body is the same thing. You know, it's the same thing. Mechanically, the body working of a man's body versus a woman's body, you know, the same bones and everything, it just works the same way. But a lot of times people will talk about, you know, women generally, right? In like a generalized look at it, a lot of times it gets looked at that women would like a softer bed and men would like a more firm bed. And that's what I'm saying. You know, the way that men and women carry fat on their body is different in ways, just because of the roles that men's body versus women's bodies play, even in just creating offspring, children. You know, there's reasons to why our bodies are slightly different in ways like that. You know, the way we carry fat and the shape of the hips and things like this from men to women. What I'm saying, why I'm giving that context, because it's needed to be given for this to understand that it doesn't matter if you are a man or a woman. Really, the body will sleep the best on what we could say as a relatively firm bed. Just like our feet will activate those gripped arches, right, with our feet opposing the center line of the human being, gripping arches inward and keeping us vertical on Earth's gravity. The feet will work the best if they can grip something firm. Like I'm saying, the muscles, they need to really be able to activate against something firm. And if something is soft or squishy, or if it stretches away from the body can't activate and just work. You know, so the body gets deactivated and Earth pulls us down with its gravity to the low end of our neutral position, right? There's no opinion to the neutral position. It's just the shape and length of the bones, like the wrist, right? There's only one way the body works, okay? There is only one way the hands work. There is only one way the feet work, and then everything in between. But those are two video titles under In The Image Clothing Company's main site here. I filmed back in November of 2025 here in beautiful St. George, Utah, before I actually moved down here with my current standard poodle, Dante, here by my feet, right? It's just the shape and length of the bones. And so as we sleep, the shape and length of the bones, this is where I'm getting to. This is the point, right? It's just, I give a lot of context, almost always, when I'm discussing anything, you know, behind In The Image Clothing Company, at least as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. My name is Evan Strong. You know, we're just laying a foundation here. Well, I mean, we've got a beautiful foundation laid, but yeah, still, I mean, everything's just laying a foundation for anything that could be furthered on top of what we're saying at any point, right? And that's my point, is I'm just giving a lot of context with these videos as I lay them out like this, you know, when they're long, because this will last forever. Every human being will always sleep the exact same as any other human being that's ever lived. You know, baseline universal human design structure, it only does what it does. So, a soft bed, it's essentially like, you know, soft shoe soles that don't allow our feet to grip those arches. It's essentially like stretch in our clothing that pulls away when our muscles pull together and don't allow things like our shoulders to stay in their neutral position. You know, soft beds, they don't allow our bodies to work. You know, the rib cage expanding and contracting as we breathe while we sleep, it's going to be so very altered on an excessively soft bed. So, yeah, for a man or a woman, if we just look at it as relatively firm, the kind of bed we sleep on, I'm not saying you have to sleep on a slab of sandstone like these rocks around me, you know, or even just like on something as firm as just the sand or the dirt, but something that's not going to have so much give to it that it changes the natural curve in the spine. We've got a video under In The Image Clothing Company's main site titled The Natural Curve in the Spine here, right? Also, The Natural Bend in the Knee is another video's title here under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. Because with these even mathematical opposing bends from bottom to top within the human being, just opposing Earth's vertical gravity pull as we travel up, just to stand vertical, as we've discussed in this video quite a bit, on the 4th of May, 2026, under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, The Body in Sleeping versus Waking Life is the title of this video here. But yeah, you know, the spine has this natural curve. The knees have this natural curve or bend in the knee, right? But this natural bend to all the bending of the body, just to have it all working, front to back evenly contracting. You know, muscles pull our hips, for example, forward or back. Really, up in the front and down in the rear, which is posterior, or down in the front and up in the rear, which is anterior. But there's a neutral between there, which is the same neutral as the bottom of our feet, from dorsiflexion, lifting the toes up, or plantar flexion, pointing the toes down, which is the same neutral as the horizontal surface to our earth. Okay, and so that's what I'm saying. From the hips down, we've got the bend in the knee. From the hips up, we've got the curve in the spine. You know, 3 curves in the spine, essentially, and just 1 bend in the knee, really, right? So you sleep on a soft bed, you know, an excessively soft bed, and all of a sudden it's pressing into your back and excessively bending your back. Okay. Well, if you excessively bend the back, you excessively bend the hips, the back comes down and connects into, or the spine, you know, like the lower third of the spine, the lumbar spine. If you sleep on something soft, it excessively bends your lumbar spine, but that connects directly into your hips, and so now you've excessively bent your hips, but your hips connect into your upper leg bones, and they go down to your knees, and so now you've excessively bent your knees, or excessively bent to your knees, you know, and then down to your ankles from there. They're excessively bent, really, you know, and from your lumbar spine, it travels up to your thoracic spine, which is your mid-back, and it's excessively bent. But if your thoracic spine excessively bends, it'll bend your cervical spine or your neck excessively as well. The thing is, the body's all connected. That's what I'm saying. And so in order to have our bodies in a neutral position, just like standing vertically with Earth's gravity, just hanging the pendulum of our hands down at the fingertips from the other end of our shoulders, right? Starting with our feet flat on the ground, though. 0 drop, the term in any brand of shoe, just meaning flat on the bottom. Traveling up, you know, having our waistband of our pants not altering the hips angle. Traveling up, and the shoulder seams of our tops not altering our shoulders positioning. You know, we are a clothing company here, under In The Image Clothing Company. Well, sleeping, you're essentially clothing your bed with your body. There you go. Do you see what I mean? Just the literal word of clothing is why we are a clothing company here, under In The Image Clothing Company. It's just to allow the body to work. Man, right? And woman. Just, yeah, whoever you are. Man, woman, tall, short, skinny, fat, any age, any part of the earth, any time period to ever be. You're just a human being. You know, when we discuss where clothing sits very clearly and thoroughly, you know, under In The Image Clothing Company here, just to not alter the body, well, yeah, it applies to every body, the literal wording, right? So, anyway, sleeping. You sleep on an excessively firm, no, let's not say excessively firm, but the point is an excessively soft bed you sleep on, and you just bend your body at the spine, at the hips, at the knees. Your body gets all bent up. Let me just shade this device a little bit from the southern Utah, St. George, Utah, specifically sun here, right? Down here in the Mojave Desert, that sun can get pretty hot in this little electronic device. So there you go. Give it a little more shade than it had. Yeah, right? If we excessively bend the body or curve the body, like curving the spine or bending the knees, bending the hips, because we just lay on an excessively soft bed and it just pushes into the bends of our body that are already there, and it just has our body not in its neutral positions anymore, we're just not going to be able to sleep well. Why? Well, because there's a neutral position to the body, and now it's not in that, and that's from either side. There's just a center or a neutral. But a big deal is breathing, if nothing else. You know, like at its simple understanding and baseline understanding of it, because we could talk about the anatomy of the human body and how things are getting affected, and it's uncomfortable for the body's workings, even if you don't think it's uncomfortable intellectually. Well, just breathing alone, if nothing else. You know, your body is still stabilizing through the entirety of it to breathe, even when you're asleep. You know, breathing, it's an activation of musculature. Your muscles are still activated when you're asleep, otherwise you wouldn't breathe. You know, muscles pull up at the top of the rib cage, and muscles pull down at the bottom of the rib cage to open this void space in our lungs for us to breathe, you know, and then an exchange of gases happen where air rushes into the body because there's less pressure there than in our atmosphere. and then, you know, we breathe out, and it's just an exchange of breathing in oxygen, exchanging it for carbon dioxide, and breathing out carbon dioxide. And the plants do it the opposite way. They breathe in carbon dioxide and breathe out oxygen, and it's just this cycle. Well, this is happening while we're asleep, but the body doesn't expand the rib cage, you know, it doesn't expand the void space in the lungs without contracting or pulling muscles together. And this is when we're subconscious or unconscious, you know, you're asleep. You're basically dead, but not really. Just meaning you're not doing this. It's happening for you. This is God. That's what I'm saying. What I'm really meaning is, yeah, it only does what it does, even if we're not even doing it. Even if we're not even doing it. I said even twice. It's not us, man. We have no say, is my point, on how the human body works. And you can see this in a way like this fairly easily. Easier than a lot of other things we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company with the anatomy of the human body. Sleeping. You couldn't possibly claim you're breathing yourself, you know, while you're asleep. Your body's doing it for you. God is doing it for us. You know, he supplies breath for our lungs. God provides everything. And yeah. Anyway, you're not going to be sleeping well at all if you can't breathe while you do it. You'll wake up because it's like, you know, you're going to try to take over with your intellect and try to see what you can do to have your body be in a better ability to breathe, a better position, or whatever you try to address to breathe better. You know, you're sleeping and not so well because you're struggling to breathe because let's say you're on an excessively soft bed and your rib cage is just like, you know, squished into this bed and you can't breathe. Right. It's okay, Dante. Good dog. This is what I'm saying, you know, this is just how it is the body's about a physical position. The body's a physical thing. It's a mechanical machine. Breathing is a physical operation of contracting or pulling muscles together to expand and move physical bendable bones of the rib cage. Determined by the position of the spine that these ribs connect into. Right, and as we breathe in, the spine comes up and back and straightens to this neutral or natural normal curve in the spine. In the Image Clothing Company's main side, the 4th of May, 2026, right? The body in sleeping versus waking life, it's the same thing, okay? It's the same thing. And so, yeah, sleeping on something relatively firm, that's a huge deal, okay? Just like in daily life, we stand on something relatively firm, and our feet can work proper. I mean, if you stand on something extremely squishy, your feet have a hard time just stabilizing your body. Your feet have a, you know, hard time just gripping, and they get fatigued, and the whole rest of your body's trying to compensate, and you get damaged. So that's what I mean, you know, you're sleeping, and your spine in an unnatural position. It's just like standing in daily life in what you could call bad posture. I mean, this is the position your spine will be put into. Just this excessive curvature. And notice it's harder for me to speak, you know, physically, mechanically with my lower jaw hinge. It's just a hinge joint. The lower jaw bone, okay? But also just, yeah, the whole spine, the whole body. It's harder to breathe like that when your spine's excessively curved. Yeah, standing in daily life with what you could call bad posture. It's just like sleeping on something squishy that just puts your spine into what you could call bad posture. It's the same exact thing. It's just mechanics. It's the same spine. It's the same breathing happening. It's the same body, whether you're awake or asleep. But while you're asleep, you've got something just pressed against your rib cage or your spine. You know, if you're sleeping on your side or your back on anything, laying down, right? Or your stomach, too. Whatever, you know, it doesn't even matter. Whatever it is what it is. That there's only one way the human body could ever work. There's no opinion to it. When you get down to the truth of it, that's always the same. And will always remain just truth, always, no matter what it is that is true in life. Hello, sun. Anyway, sun, check that out. Okay, yeah. Whoa! Just fall off the side of this rock. Anyway, let's talk about some more things with sleeping versus standing, okay? The body in sleeping versus waking life. Well, yeah, I mean sleeping versus waking, but that's what I'm saying. Is sleeping, we're essentially just standing horizontally, okay? Our body still works the exact same, It's just, that we're not awake. That's it. Like intellectually. Everything else is the same thing. Really. I mean, seen with context, but yeah, like mechanically, and the body's functioning. So there you go. Sleeping on a relatively firm bed, you have to. But then also, a pillow, right? Where's your head? Well, it's on top of your spine. The spine is the vertical support at the bone structure level, right, for the head. It's the only bone that's supporting the skull of the human being, just the spine right in the very center. And so to stand just nice and vertical in daily life, just with these even mathematical opposing bends back and forth, opposing Earth's vertical gravity pull from the ankles to the neck, from bottom to top in the human being. What we have to have is the head on top of everything, nice and vertically, just with gravity, okay? The natural head position, if you will, the neutral head position, right? A video's title under In The Image Clothing Company's main side here. In The Image Clothing Company's main side, the 4th of May, today, 2026, right? The body in sleeping versus waking life. Well, if we want to stand with our head on top of our bodies in waking life, we can't sleep with a pillow behind our head doing this. Pushing our head forward. You're sleeping with bad posture. If you're calling it bad posture, right? If you sleep with a pillow under the rear of your head, there's just this nice natural curve to the spine. Oh, but this is a huge point. This is why, in a lot of ways, we would want to sleep with a pillow, or feel like we'd like to, feel like it might help our bodies to support the rear of our heads or the side of our head with a pillow, even though that's just going to damage the body. Don't believe me, but truth is truth. Mechanically, this is how this works. If you sleep on a soft bed, an excessively soft bed, that's what I was just saying a few minutes ago here, right? Truth is truth. It's not my choice. This is what I'm saying. We're standing in daily life vertical. All right, you sleep, and let's say you lay down, take this vertical neutral stance, and just drop it down horizontal, and now you're sleeping. Well, you sleep on an excessively soft bed. That's unnatural. A man-made bed is excessively soft. There's not stuff that's that soft in nature. The thing is, really, no human being ever had as soft of a bed in the past as we do in modern day. 2026, and whenever it is going forth. We just didn't have the technology to make all these materials that can be so soft. I mean, you take tree branches, pine boughs or spruce boughs, and you lay them out and make a bed. It's still pretty firm, but it's soft enough that it's comfortable for the body. It's that nice, like, relatively firm bed that our bodies need to just stay neutral. Something like this, natural things. Again, there's no opinion to natural. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, but we make unnatural things from natural things as human beings. It's just natural undone. Everything always decomposes back to natural. It just takes some time when we alter things to such a degree as human beings. But it's still just the same stuff it always was. It's just been, like, altered from its natural state into an unnatural state, So, you sleep on an excessively soft bed, and you already just excessively curve your spine. But your spine's supporting your head, and so this excessive curve in the spine just pushes the head forward. And so now it's like, well, where are you going to put your head? Well, you put a pillow under it to fill the gap that's been created, the unnatural gap from this unnatural excessive curve in your spine from a soft bed, an excessively soft bed, pressing into your spine, excessively curving it. Well, the head is just the top of the upper third of the spine, the cervical spine, the neck, and it just curves forward. So you curve your low back by pressing a soft bed into it. It'll curve the mid back because they're connected backward, right, is how the mid back curves. And then your upper back or your neck, it just curves forward. And so it's just excessively forward just because the low back goes forward, the mid back goes backward, and the upper back goes forward. It's just mathematical, even opposing bends. So, yeah, you sleep on an excessively soft bed on your back and your hips and down on your knees and even your ankles, and all that gets excessively bent. And so then traveling up to your head, well, yeah, it gets pushed forward because it's just the top of your back that's excessively curved, and the neck just curves forward. Man, right? So then you sleep with a pillow just because there's a gap there. There's all this excessive curvature, and so now if you don't put something behind your head, it's like, you know, just so curved at the neck from an excessively soft bed that your head just flops backward, and it's like you're looking upward while you're asleep. But the fix isn't to put a pillow under the head, because then you're just reinforcing this excessive bend in the body. And now you sleep for however many hours a night you sleep, even in the day, but just you're asleep, you know. Dante's asleep. Good dog, Dante. Good Dante dog. There he is. Good dog. Anyway, but now you sleep with an excessively curved spine and your head out of its only neutral position. Yeah. And then you try to stand up in daily life, and it's like, oh shoot, what happened? Well, you slept on a soft bed. Sounds great for something to be soft, sounds comfortable. It's not. The body's comfort level is in its neutral position. Earth's gravity is the resting, but it's also the best posture you could have because it's in the center. There's only one way the human body could ever work. Oh, shoot. No opinion to that. Today is, though, the 4th of May, 2026. This is In The Image Clothing Company's main side. The video's title. Through the surrounding sounds, I get it, right? But, yes, the title is the standing, it's not the standing. The title is The Body in Sleeping versus Waking Life. All right. So there you go. Don't sleep with a pillow, but if you're sleeping on a soft bed, you're almost going to have to sleep with a pillow, or else your head's just going to be in such an unnatural position with no support, because the excessively soft bed puts the rest of your body in an unnatural position, excessively bent, and so your head is just not going to lay on the bed. It's going to be like up off the bed, you know, coming from the rest of your body excessively bending, and then the spine just comes up into the base of the skull. Bent now excessively, you know, so the head's just so forward. But if you sleep on a relatively firm bed, your spine can stay neutral. Now your head's just there. You know, you just lay down. Like if I were to just fall straight backward, for example, go from vertical to horizontal and sleep, my body's already neutral, just with this slight bend that's just naturally there. What? Natural, neutral, and normal. Normally, also, there's just a natural bend to the neutral body. There's only one way the human body could ever work. So you sleep on a relatively firm bed, and it's the same thing as standing. With no pillow, too, right? Sleep with no pillow, and then your spine's just there, naturally curved. I mean, who doesn't like to just lay out in a park on the grass? Maybe some people don't, but you know, a lot of people love that. They just love like laying on the, like in the bed of a truck. And there you go, right? If I just mean, you know, there was no trucks until there were trucks, but just meaning laying on the ground. A lot of people lay on the ground and they see how good it feels on their back. Well, because you're sleeping in a very soft, unnaturally soft, excessively soft, squishy, you know, plush bed. And you don't get rested at night in your excessively soft bed, but in the daytime, maybe you just lay on the floor or on the ground for a while, and it's like, man, this feels good. You just sleep on something firm like that, and it'll feel good, right? But we just don't know what we don't know. That's what I'm saying. You know, we have all these advertisements for all these excessively soft beds, these new inventions of bed material and, you know, technology put into beds and all sorts of different ways you can have something, you know, be so soft, and it's like a cloud. Well, try to walk on a cloud, you know, your feet will go right through it. Try to walk on the ground and you feel grounded. You feel alive, you know. Sleep on something relatively firm. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm telling you how your body works and the only way it does. And I can tell you that. There's a universal human design. It's things like physics, you know, there's just laws to these kind of things. Gravity, it only works how it does. Bones and ranges of motion through measurable mathematical degrees of functioning, levers, hinges, and rotations in the body, it only does what it does. Digestion, it only is what it is. Breathing, it only is what it is. These are physical functions. And so for many hours a night, you're laying on an excessively soft bed, and maybe you're just laying with a pillow under your head as well, you know, or even just one or the other, your body's damaged. So we need to be sleeping on something relatively flat. Well, flat, really, but relatively firm. Just like the ground, you know. It can be a little bit softer than the ground. But relatively firm, for sure, to keep the body working. I mean, the rib cage will just try so hard to excessively be working, you know, to stabilize, just to breathe. If it's breathing against something that's just moving away from it, you know, just like stretching clothing, but just like an excessively soft bed. So anyway, there's no opinion to it, you know. There's no preference to it either. You can say, well, I get it. Some people like firm beds, but I you know, somebody might say, I personally like softer beds. Well, you can't. I mean, I don't mean to be like, well, I don't know. I mean, right? It's just, it's not my opinion, is what I'm saying. To a degree, you get past a certain level of just relatively firm, and once you start getting to excessively soft, right? If you can see what I mean. If your bed's too soft, you're not going to be able to breathe while you sleep. You know. That's it. You know, I mean, that's all we would have to say. And then also just the body just resting in positions that aren't neutral. It's like my hand here, you know. If I keep my hand nice and firm, like a soft, or like a, no, not soft, but my hand nice and firm, like a firm bed, a nice relatively firm flat bed, and I lay my wrist down on it, my wrist stays neutral. Right? In the Image Clothing Company's main side, the 4th of May, 2026, this video is titled, The Body in Sleeping versus Waking Life. But you sleep on an excessively... There's people over here. As I did that. Anyway, there's people all around here. I just film videos outside. It is what it is. But it's funny when I see people see me and they're like, what is he doing? Talking to a rock, you know, in this case. Anyway, you sleep on an excessively soft bed. And if you take my wrist as an example here, being like the spine of the body, the hips of the body, the knees of the body, you know, and then the spine travels straight into the head. If you sleep on something excessively soft, laying your body down on it, this soft bed will just squish away from your body, and it'll take the neutral position of your body, like my wrist here, seeing the neutral straight out from the elbow, out the end of the hand, you know, just the only way the fingers, bones physically mesh and connect directly to each other through ligaments, just the shape and length of the bones, just the shape of the ends of the bones, very, very, very specifically connecting, and the body can never possibly do anything else besides just what it can do, right? There's no opinion. There's only one way the human body could ever work. But when sleeping on an excessively soft bed, you take the neutral in your entire body, and the bed moves away, you know, just like gives because the bed's soft, and now your body's neutral isn't neutral anymore, right? And so now the entire body gets damaged. There's a good visual with the wrist, right? The wrist just moves out of its neutral when it's placed onto something that gives away at the joint of the wrist. The spine moves out of its neutral when it you know, moves out of its neutral when it's placed onto a bed. It's excessively soft and the bed material just gives. It excessively curves the spine. It excessively bends the hips. It excessively bends the knee. But then the head's just out of its neutral position as well. And the jaw, stabilizing the entire body, is also damaged. So, the human body, right? It only sleeps how it does. Just as everything the body does, there's only one way it does it. It's God's design, designed in the image of Jesus Christ. We don't have a say. No kind of advice needed. We need an understanding on the anatomy of how this thing functions. It only does what it does, right? In the Image Clothing Company, we know what we're doing here. We don't get to decide it, so don't believe us, right? Truth is truth. Sleeping on relatively firm beds, though, with no pillow, you know. That's a big deal. So anyway, maybe that's, you know, getting close to all we say in this video. Wind's picking up a little bit right now. But You know, I mean, everything you could possibly be clothing your body with while you sleep. I understand the wind noise if and where in the video, right? It is what it is. But, you know, we talk about shoelaces, not altering the body, drawstrings, not altering the body, pants sitting in a correct location, and tops, undergarments, socks, and gloves, and hats, and anything you could possibly place onto the body. Possibly, right? Anything you could possibly place onto the body. The literal word of clothing the body with anything. Well, you know, I think my tongue's still blue from what I was drinking last night. This like slushy thing. Yeah, anyway, that's what it is. Blunt, bold, raw, and real in the Image Clothing Company. It's just another date mark documentation. I'll be doing this the rest of my entire life, and our team will talk about these things with people, as well as I will talk about these things with people as the founder of the Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong. You know, but the big focus is just, yeah, the body's just what it is, but if we add things to it, clothing it with anything, you know, it can be very damaged. So there is an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast titled Sleeping Truths. Some of those earlier episodes, you know, in the teens and 20s, well, just the earlier ones, though, wherever it was exactly. You know, I know some of the teens ones were hydration truths and eating truths, like 16 and 17, give or take, the numbered episodes of In the Image Clothing Company podcast. Like I'm saying, we're on episode 204 as of today's date, the 4th of May, 2026. But there was an episode of In the Image Clothing Company podcast, and still is, you know, but that I made titled Sleeping Truths. You know, and I talked about a lot of the things that, similar to what I'm saying in this video, ways you could never possibly get a regular rested night's sleep or day's sleep or whenever you sleep, if there's certain things in your body that just aren't allowed to be in their only working position because there's something physically placed on them, you know, and I discussed some of the things I've mentioned in this video to a degree. But, you know, clothing, I mean, that's what I'm saying. Ropes, you know, you tie a rope around your waist to hold your pants on while you sleep, let's say, and you tie one side over the other in a knot around your waist in the center line of your body, and you twist your entire body, you know. And so we need to just keep our drawstrings centered, the ropes around our waist. We discussed the slipped lap knot, L-A-P-P, you know, just tied toward the center with the tail end, and then you've got a horizontal waistband or just a rope holding your pants on your body. Otherwise, you twist your entire body the entire night you sleep. And that's what I'm saying. It's just the same as in daily waking life, you know, where we just have to have even hips in waking life because they connect to our spine and down to our toe tips and up to our fingertips and to the tip of our head, with our jaw in between there, stabilizing the entire body, and just us breathing always if we're alive, and that's taking the entire body to stabilize in every breath we take as well. It's just, as I'm saying, it's the exact same in sleeping as it is in waking life. So a big point with this video really is just anything we ever discuss under In the Image Clothing Company with allowing the body to work, like where clothing sits, unless you're sleeping with no clothing on at all, right? And, you know, times and places in your own house and, you know, or in your own place you live, you know, that's what it is, right? But yeah, right, I get that. But you know, staying modest is what I'm saying is the point in daily life. But when you're in your own house sleeping, it is different to the degree that it is, right? Seen with context. But I'm just saying, you know, if you're sleeping with clothing on, it's got to be just placed on your body the exact same level of intentionality and in the exact same locations and just ways of having anything physically placed onto the body as it does in daily life. So this video is titled, the 4th of May, 2026, In the Image Clothing Company's main side, the body in sleeping versus waking life. Well, it's the same exact approach. But there's a lot of things that come with sleeping that we can mention here in this video as well. This could be a really, really long video, potentially. I don't know how long it'll be exactly yet, but just I'll give as much information and context as I do as of this video for the, you know, documentation under In the Image Clothing Company. But yeah, the 4th of May, 2026. When we're sleeping, right? The body in sleeping versus waking life. Well, there's things with sleeping that are different because in daily waking life, you're probably moving around quite a bit. You know, you're inside sometimes maybe, or you're outside sometimes maybe, or maybe you're outside for the entire day. And a big point is just natural ventilation. And this is a big focus just that we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company with our slogan here on our main side being allowing the body to work, just meaning in any aspect of life. There's just a huge focus to realize there's a lot of ways we can have unnatural ventilation in modern 2026, for example, but going forth. We've got these places, these vehicles or these buildings where we've got the entire outside world, just the only thing that exists, right? Just natural earth. Before we make any building as human beings, there's always just earth. We live in this unnatural, modern, man-made world placed onto God's natural earth that always remains. Again, the things that we have, the resources we have to make anything with have always been here. Matter cannot be created or destroyed, and so we've always got all the building materials that we'll ever have on this earth. It's always only natural, ever. Even if we alter it to an unnatural state, it's still the same stuff, broken down to a small level, Yeah, things are only what they are. Truth is truth. It's not my choice. It's not any of our choices as human beings. We make things, though, buildings and things like vehicles, like I was saying, where we have the air sealed off completely from just nature, from just outside. It's always only there. There's only always outside until there's inside. Truly, right? There's no such thing as inside. Some people say they like to be inside better than outside. Well, inside doesn't exist until human beings make it. There's only outside. There's only expansiveness. There's only truth. No opinion to that. Okay. Yeah, so buildings and cars, things like this, we can get such stagnant air. And so what I'm saying is, yeah, the ventilation, it's not natural airflow. Like right here, the wind's blowing, and this could be the same air that was clear on the other side of the earth, blowing all across the earth's surface in our atmosphere. But you go inside of a building, like a house, and you go sleep in it, and you've got all the doors closed and the windows closed, and you're just breathing the same air. So you're recycling the same air again and again and again, and it doesn't get to be refreshed from the plants. Like I'm saying, the plants breathe in carbon dioxide, essentially, and they breathe out oxygen, essentially, right? And we breathe in oxygen, and then breathe out carbon dioxide as human beings and animals, like mammals, And so what happens is, if we're sleeping inside something that's just so sealed off with the airflow like that, it's just so hard for us to breathe. So this video is titled, the 4th of May, 2026, in the Image Clothing Company's main side, the body in sleeping versus waking life. Well, when we're awake, we're moving around where we are. We're outside if we are. There's a lizard. There's a lot of lizards around here in the Mojave Desert in St. George, Utah. But yeah, if you're sleeping inside and you've just got basically sealed off air, you're just not going to be breathing fresh air, and your body's going to be struggling. We need fresh air to just fuel our bodies. I mean, air fuels our bodies in a way. Food fuels our bodies, but air, it oxygenates our blood, and then our blood gets pumped through our whole bodies. As we breathe oxygen into our lungs, those little veins, if you will, those little pathways for the blood in the lungs called capillaries, allow the oxygen that we breathe in to mix with our blood, and then it pumps through our entire body. But if we're not having refreshed oxygen in the air around us because we're inside of a building that's just like sealed off at the air, from the outside natural earth, in our unnatural, if you will. Not that it's always a bad thing to have buildings be made, but it's unnatural. It's not naturally there. We make it as human beings, like a house to sleep in. Yeah, we're just breathing the same air all night, and then you're not going to sleep well. So natural ventilation, some people don't want their windows cracked in their house because maybe they're, paying for the air conditioning or the heat, from our, ways we can do that as human beings. But for the sake of breathing, you have to have some kind of natural ventilation when you sleep. To a degree, you got to be breathing some fresh air. You're not going to be able to sleep as naturally as you could. And not that there's some kind of like approach or opinion to naturally sleeping, but I mean just the only way the body sleeps. It's only going to be able to sleep fairly well if it can have some fairly natural ventilation at the airflow. So, I mean, those are some of the big points. And then, natural versus unnatural materials. Yeah, I mean, as we say, clothing, at the very baseline of it, has to stay centered, because there's a center line to our bodies. Fit correct, things like joints of material of clothing meshing with joints of body parts. And then be made in all the ways we can from 100% natural materials. Well, unnatural materials, they can seep into the holes in our skin called pores. Here's a truck, engine braking, making some solid noise. Anyway, let me say this, let me talk about this. You want to hear something? This is how it is. There's an organ of the body. The skin is an organ of the body, the epidermis. And the skin, it surrounds the entire body. It's got holes in it called pores, where perspiration comes out. But unnatural, synthetic, artificial, man-made, synonyms with fake materials, these are things that can potentially poison our natural, God-made bodies, right? So we've got unnatural things, and so if you're sleeping in anything unnatural, your bedding's unnatural material, your clothing's unnatural material, because you can have unnatural materials that doesn't stretch. It's not only that if something's stretchy, it's unnatural. Well, that's almost always the case. But it's not only that if something's unnatural, it has stretch to it. You can have stretchy, material damaging your body, in your bedding too. Stretchy bedding damage, even if your clothing's not stretching, you've got stretchy sheets or blankets, things like this. But just unnatural materials, it's poisoning your body. These things are made from oil, the same stuff we put in machinery, to lubricate it. Yeah, it's pumped from the earth, like true oil. Polyester, poly blends, polyurethane, polypropylene, not Polynesian. Those are human beings. But yeah. Anyway, fake materials, right? It'll poison the body, and so you're sleeping in poisonous materials, and you don't know it. If you don't know it, you got to sleep in natural materials. Otherwise, your natural body has a clash with these unnatural materials. But just as is the same in daily life, right? So this video is titled "The 4th of May, 2026: The Body in Sleeping versus Waking Life." Well, it's the same, but there's some things that we just have to understand a little bit differently because, yeah. Anyway, so, the jaw, we put so much focus on the jaw under In the Image Clothing Company. Like I said, it stabilizes the entire body. It eats, it breathes, it speaks. It does a lot for the whole body. It is the shoulder. It's connected to the crown of the head and some of the upper ribs. The tongue musculature is musculature of the jaw. So we've got videos discussing the jaw, videos discussing the tongue, like the natural tongue position, the importance of even jaw musculature. A lot of videos under In the Image Clothing Company about stuff like that, right? With eating too, the importance of bringing food to the mouth rather than bringing your mouth to your food, right? Anyway, eating and drinking with the left hand, just meaning non-dominant, because we live in this right-handed world. 85% give or take of human beings are right-handed, so we get into right-handed patternings off to the right side of our bodies. But what I'm saying is, well, ropes, that can do it. Shoelaces and drawstrings tied over to the right, potentially. But clothing, we're a clothing company here under In the Image Clothing Company. It's the only thing physically placed on us. You want to help your body? Well, you got to address your clothing to allow your body to work. You have to. You don't have to care about clothing. You don't have to care about fashion in the slightest, but you have to be intentional about what you choose to clothe your body with, or you'll damage it, and permanently until fixed or addressed. Chronic patterning gets built up, like I'm saying. So, sleeping, yeah, we need the jaw to stabilize the entire body. That's what I'm saying. So the teeth stayed nicely, slightly parted, okay, and we stabilize the body through our tongue, suctioning to the roof of our mouth. Right, so, if you're sleeping in an oversized top, well, we just discussed how oversized clothing damages the body and all the ways that it damages the body. In all ways it'll damage the body because at the baseline understanding of it, like I'm saying, joints of material of clothing meshing with joints of body parts. There's a lot to it, but yeah, oversized clothing is not a choice. A video's titled here under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, if you want your body to work. It's not a choice to wear oversized clothing. Your body's just a mechanical machine. The clothing has to be meshing at its joints of bones, right? The body with the joints of material of the clothing. But if you're sleeping in oversized clothing, well, this video is titled The 4th of May, 2026, and the Image Clothing Company's main side. the body in sleeping versus waking life, it's the same thing, functionality-wise, mechanic workings-wise, you know, breathing and just living, just existing. You're just unconscious or subconscious. You know, your body's still doing the same stuff, though. Still can only do anything it can do in the same ways, even if you're asleep. You've got an oversized top item of clothing, or any clothing at all, but, you know, that's around your shoulders and your rib cage. Your jaw's not going to stay centered. If your oversized top is on your body, because your jaw is your shoulder, it's connected directly. You know, the lower jawbone, this mandible, it's got musculature connected through tendons coming clear out to the edge of the shoulder, right? As you can see here, if you can just see this, right? So to keep the jaw centered, to stabilize the entire body, to breathe well, and to not get excessively dehydrated, right? The jaw has to stay centered, the shoulders have to stay centered for the jaw to stay centered, but the spine has to be centered for the jaw to stay centered. The jaw is stabilizing the head that's on top of the spine spine's in the centered line of the body. You know, I mean, musculature of the jaw connects to the spine in the ways that it does, kind of, just meaning, yeah, but kind of. You know, the tongue connects down into the neck and also into the lower jawbone. And, well, anyway, regardless, the tongue's in the center line of the body. The spine's in the center line of the body. The jaw has to be in the center line of the body. It's just a hinge joint. If it's not centered, it's not going to work proper. And we seal the mouth, well, we seal the throat by the tongue. But the tongue's in the center of the lower jawbone. It's connected out to the shoulder edges. So what I'm saying is, it's not only just being intentional in daily life. That's this video's point, right? The body in sleeping versus waking life under In the Image Clothing Company's main side, the 4th of May, 2026 today. This video, it's not just like, well, it's just that it's no different. It's not that you can be intentional about things like clothing, you know, just the only thing physically placed on your body, the literal word of clothing, in daily waking life, but then you can sleep in something just big, baggy, oversized, or stretchy, you know, and you know, on an excessively soft bed, and whatever you want like this. No, I mean, your body's the same exact thing if it's asleep as if it's awake. So, as intentional as we discuss having to be, you know, like physics-wise, like we discuss it as it is, just because of the hinges, levers, and rotations in the human being determined by the shape and length of the bones that will never change, just the only way the human body could ever possibly work, residing in its neutrals. No possible opinion to it, you know, it's measurable mathematical truth. We have to be just as intentional with our clothing when we sleep as we do when we are awake. But even just having our bodies in their neutral positions, as we discuss under In the Image Clothing Company, even if we never had clothing, we could still have In the Image Clothing Company be what we are, because we discuss the body regardless of clothing. The point is, we just have clothing that we place onto the body, but our focus is just the human body's functioning. And so just in daily life, you know, just using both sides of our bodies to stay centered, you know, and just keeping our bodies standing and sitting even and centered just because of the bones. I mean, there's no opinion to it. You have to be just as intentional as you sleep. Otherwise, you damage your body, you know. And so that's what I'm saying is really this video's title, a wrap up, if you will. I mean, I might keep talking for quite some time, but either way, just the understanding of this video and the reason for it, and the way that I could have explained it, in most all ways of what we've said in this video. You know, there's certain specific things we've touched on that are really only specific to sleeping, but if we just say, well, anything you ever need to do in daily waking life to be intentional about your body, any position your body just naturally sits in daily waking life, it's the exact same thing when you're asleep. It's the exact same body. It's only resting. That's it. Sleeping is just resting your body so you can get up and do more with it in the daytime. But the funny thing about it is, like, it's what I'm saying. No opinion to this. Neutral, centered, Earth's vertical gravity pull is the resting state of the human being. You know, like trying to get centered, well, that's the most restful state the human being could have. It's not like something we have to try to achieve. It's like I'm saying, as a little child, the body works and it's centered. It's got all its motion. We just stay centered, if we can, throughout our whole lives, really. That's great, and that's possible, totally, you know, to the degree that we can. I mean, we'll never be perfect, because we're imperfect human beings. That's why we have to rely on a perfect God, Jesus Christ, right? I mean, that's the point. But, you know, if we don't stay centered throughout our lives, it's just about getting back to as centered and functional. That's the point of centered, is functional. Earth's vertical gravity pull is centered. You see what I mean? But yeah, getting as centered as we can in our own individualistic situations. This is what we have to do. So, well, you're asleep too. You know, you just got to sleep centered. You know, if you're sleeping on your side, the left hand is in front if the left leg's in front. Or the left hand is behind if the left leg is behind. And same with the right. The right arm is in front if the right leg is in front. Or the right arm is behind if the right leg is behind. Keeping the spine centered, and then we rotate at the shoulders and hips, like I was saying earlier in this video. Man, it's a good thing to eat and drink something. I'd benefit from doing that right about now. Out here in the Mojave Desert. Okay, anyway, yeah, sleeping centered, you know, just focusing on your spine, keeping your spine centered, keeping your jaw just naturally stable, and trying to not ever have your teeth be able to touch. I mean, really, I can word it as never letting your teeth touch when you're asleep. You know, and that's what I mean, is you sleep in an excessively soft bed, or you sleep with a pillow, and you're just gonna, like, push your teeth together. But your tongue is what seals your throat. And it does that with your teeth slightly parted, because if the teeth are slightly parted, well, that's just how the body naturally works. Why? Is because then we can stabilize the jawbone with all the musculature that's connecting the jaw to things, the head and the shoulders and the neck, you know. So that natural tongue position, it's got to remain, man. But that's what I'm saying, it's no different. It's not like we have a different approach to sleeping as waking. You know, we're not discussing like, well, we talk about daily life all the time under In the Image Clothing Company and allowing the body to work, but when we sleep, you know, and then hypothetically it's like a whole different thing. No, it's just like, well, everything we discuss about just allowing the body to work, it's the same thing while you're asleep. It's the same exact body. It's the same exact functioning. It's the same exact thing. It's the same only possible approach. Allowing God's design of the human being to work. In the Image Clothing Company slogan here on our main side, allowing the body to work. We could say allowing the body to sleep. It only sleeps how it does. So yeah, if we can keep our tongue in a proper neutral position while you sleep, that's how you can figure out, you know, if your bed's too soft, you're going to excessively curve your spine and not allow your tongue to suction to the roof of your mouth, you know. Or if you're wearing an oversized top, you're just going to pull down on your jaw and not allow your tongue to suction to the roof of your mouth, you know. If you're in stretchy clothing, it's just going to pull your musculature away, you know, from where it works or contracts or pulls, the only way it functions, you know, activation of the musculature. And then you're not going to allow your tongue to seal your throat, you know. But even a pillow, you know, you sleep on your side and there's a pillow under your head. Your jaw's on it, probably. You know, it's going to be very, very, very hard to try to sleep on a pillow with your head and not have your jaw touching it if you're like on the side of your head with a pillow. But then also just the musculature of the jaw, it comes up to the whole crown of the head, you know. Wow, do I look like Michael Jackson now or what? Look at this, you know. I could look like Michael Jackson. He was white. He was black, but he was white. But he was also black. He was still Michael Jackson. Yeah, we're just human beings. Black or white. Or you know, go grab yourself a can of purple paint or something. Still the same person. Anyway, the musculature of the jaw, it goes up to the head anyway. So even if the pillow is not actually against your lower jawbone, right? But it's just up against your head. If you're sleeping on a pillow, you know, you put pressure against the musculature of your jaw that's stabilizing your jaw in the center. And so, you know, as you sleep with no pillow, just the area that your head's going to rest on the bed is the crown of the head, you know, not on the musculature of the jaw that comes up to the crown of the head. You know, it's just what it is. That's cool. That's a cool understanding. That's something I didn't fully get. you know, I'm just deepening my understandings as I go, as the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong. I'll be doing this my entire lifetime, but at first I had no idea what I was talking about. And then, you know, I started learning things, and now I really, really understand things. I mean, I couldn't claim it. You know, we've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of documented video footage of me speaking like this, just discussing the anatomy of the human body in depth and how it works. You know, and there's no opinion to truth. Mathematics, you know. It's just a mechanical machine, and so I know how it works, but you know, now at the beginning of a lot of this, though, when I started sleeping without a pillow, for example. I used to always sleep with pillows. I used to, like I was saying, you know, make all the mistakes, if you will, just about all the same mistakes we discussed not doing, like stretching clothing, oversized clothing. I was tying drawstrings imbalanced, and shoelaces were all laced improperly and tied unevenly toward the right until I was about 24 years old. You know, I was sleeping with pillows, though, sleeping in soft beds and stretchy bedding, you know, unnatural material bedding. I wasn't sleeping well, right? But when I started to stop sleeping with a pillow, right? I didn't sleep with a pillow anymore. At that point, I was like, well, how does this make sense? Because the spine, shouldn't it stay in the center line of the body? And if you don't have a pillow there to keep your spine neutral, then how is this natural? You know, and it is, because, you know, a lot of it's just because we're not having pressure on the musculature of the jaw. That's a big part of it. But also the spine, it's meant to move, you know. I mean, it's still rested because we just pivot at the base of the skull. You know, and so it's fine to lay on our side, and there's just a lot of natural accommodation that happens. You know, the scapula or the shoulder blade, these big bones on our upper back, they can really, really, really wrap around our rib cage. There's just so much natural motion in those shoulder blades or scapulas, you know. Oh yeah, man. I mean, there's a video we filmed a few days ago here under In the Image Clothing Company's main site titled Clothing's Effect on the Upper Trapezius, the upper third of the 3 trapezius muscles on the back connecting the shoulder blades to the spine. Then I was just showing a lot of the natural motion in my personal scapulas or shoulder blades, but just when the body's working properly of the human being. And when you lay on your side, you know, for example, instead of laying on your back, if you will, your shoulder blade or your scapula, it can really wrap around your rib cage, and now you're not really uneven at the spine. You know, like with no pillow under your head on a relatively firm bed, you know, sleeping within clothing that actually fits you properly, and, you know, natural materials with no stretch. Because, you know, there's this understanding of healthy accommodation in the body versus unnatural compensation. If something in the body's not working properly, something else will try to make up for the role that should be playing, and do something different. You know, move into a position that's different than normal or neutral or natural, you know. But healthy accommodation is things like when the collarbone or the clavicle, one of these 3 bones of the shoulder, you know, from the center line of the body at the top of the sternum in the front, this bone comes up and out and becomes one of the 3 bones of the shoulder. It pivots up and in, and that motion of the collarbone coming up and in is healthy accommodation to allow the arm to get entirely at its farthest end of internal rotation and extend. Otherwise, if this collarbone or clavicle is down at its low end, we can't fully rotate the arm just because we have to move the collarbone or clavicle up out of the way with healthy accommodation to open the capsule of the shoulder to rotate the upper arm bone, the humerus, internal. You know, the collarbone or clavicle comes up and internal rotation, or down and external rotation. Those are the 2 options. If it comes up, it rotates the whole arm in, essentially, right? And if it goes down, it rotates the whole arm out. Meaning the arm could stay neutral and it could come up or it could go down, but the arm can't rotate externally and come up all the way, and at the clavicle or the collarbone. And it can't rotate internally and go down all the way. Not really mechanically. You'll get bones hitting into each other, and, you know, and muscles will just get pinched between bones, you know, up in the rotator cuff. And anyway, you just get at the farthest end of, you know, like the elongation of certain muscles. They can't go anywhere else besides where they can. You know, it's impossible to stretch the human being anywhere. It doesn't go anywhere else besides where the bones go. If you're residing in your neutral positions, you couldn't possibly stretch somewhere. You just have the bones hit to each other on either end. But if you're at the low end of your neutral, and you try to stretch to get somewhere, but you just start neutral, and you've just got either side, it's no kind of perfect world kind of thing. If the body was never altered, that's just how it works. It activates it as a whole, but you've got things altering it, and it's just altered, Chronic patterning is what I mean by altered. So anyway, the body in sleeping versus waking life, it's the same thing. Here's the wind. I get it. It's windy. I understand. Maybe that's where we wrap it up. Probably. Anyway, so we discussed where clothing sits very clearly here under In the Image Clothing Company on this universal human design, right? But maybe not in this video. I'm not holding anything back. We've got it documented, posted publicly everywhere and anywhere we do. So there you go, standing versus sleeping. I keep saying it like that. I've said it like that multiple times in this video at least, but the body in sleeping versus waking life. The point is, yeah, it's just like standing. How to stand properly? Well, if we can figure that out, then we can sleep properly. It's the same positioning. The body's about a position, right? So anyway, I feel like that's where we should end this video. Just as I say when I make these videos where I do when it's the case, there's a lot more that I could say that I haven't said yet in this video on the topic, right? But as time progresses, I am doing this my entire lifetime. Evan Strong, the founder of In the Image Clothing Company, founder but leader for life of In the Image Clothing Company, So our team will build, and we're here, for life in St. George, Utah. So check us out, man. Check out what we do if you want to. You don't have to care about us as a company, but what we do applies to you. Okay, all right, there's a universal human design. And over on In the Image Clothing Company Poodles, it's a very similar thing. Collars, leashes, harnesses, bandanas, slip leads, whatever it is you place onto a dog. The literal word of clothing a dog with something, anything at all. And then we'll breed purebred standard poodles. We'll do events. We do things for the environment, getting people into nature and dogs into nature under In the Image Clothing Company. This stuff will be more clearly explained and thoroughly understood, as time progresses and as our team builds here in beautiful St. George, Utah as well under In the Image Clothing Company. But we've got another fourth of us in the Image Clothing Company music. We make a lot of music, singing, guitar playing, lyricism, spoken word, rhythm and poetry, geared around the gospel of Jesus Christ with the messages. Yeah, we've got series where we do under In the Image Clothing Company. We've got sizing and setup of guitar that we show just to not alter things like the neutral wrist, the natural rounding to our hands that correlates with the arches in our feet, and these round gripped arches with our different length toes, different length forefingers wrapping around our different length thumb that's opposable, right? The thumb plays an entirely different function than the fingers. Anyway, we discussed the body, man, and we know what we're talking about, so don't believe us, but you'll see what I'm saying if you see what we're saying here under In the Image Clothing Company. All right, so fingernails and toenails, a huge importance, even if they're dirty, like mine are here underneath. But yeah, fully to the tips of the fingers and toes, cut relatively flat on the tips to stay in that neutral position of the wrist coming up or the wrist going down, the foot gripping arches, the neutral from pronation or supination, really. In the Image Clothing Company shoelace technique, the only way the top of the feet are shaped, the other end from the bottom of the feet with the shoe sole. Anyway, we're just weaving ropes across the top of the feet, right? There's only one way the bones, ligaments, tendons, and muscles in the feet grip arches inward and support our bodies at our foundation. And the ropes we call shoelaces determine that functioning because they're right on top of our feet. And we're lifting our shoes up off the ground every time we lift our foot up. Dorsiflexion. Half the foot's function is lifting it up off the ground. We're lifting the shoe off the ground as well. It's going to affect the entire body if we're not weaving ropes across the top of the feet. The only way the top of the feet is shaped. All right. So anyway, yeah, a lot of free modifications though. Keeping collars centered. In the Image Clothing Company's dreaded collar seam modification. Any kind of thing discrepant or different in the collar of a top that needs to be circular around the neck. Damage, rotated seams. In the Image Clothing Company's rotated seam modification, zippers and things like this. In the Image Clothing Company's pant zipper modification, but zippers anywhere on the body, it's a very similar kind of approach, except there's more to it in modern pant design than just any other zipper. this just a plain zipper would be, because of the ways that there is. So check it out under In The Image Clothing Company. Just keeping clothing centered, man. Dog products and human being clothing will have whatever else we branch out into product wise under In The Image Clothing Company. Like I say, we do so much more than just clothing, but we do so much more than just addressing the human body's functioning, which is why we ever would talk about clothing at all under In The Image Clothing Company. You know, the anatomy of the human body and allowing it to work. But here in the state of Utah, this is our focus location wise, and really, yeah, doing things for the environment and the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints too, you know, things like this. I mean, these are the big things that we do as In The Image Clothing Company, and only to further deepen and progress, you know, more into these things as time progresses as well, right? And our team building, that's a big thing too. And our building being built, that's a big thing as well down here in St. George, Utah. So anyway, good stuff, right? Yeah, it's just the same thing. Your body's asleep, it's the same body, it's just resting. If your body's awake, well, it's always the same approach, allowing the body to work. So thank you. Today is the 4th of May, 2026. I'd show you that Dante's here, but he's here. Dante, up. You good boy? You kind of stuck? I clipped his slip lead to a little weed growing out of this rock, so he's over, you know, he's down here. Anyway, I just don't want to cut it premature, but I also don't want to make it any longer than it needs to be for this one specific video. I mean, we'll talk about this again and again and again where we do, you know, like I'm saying, deepening our understandings and our information of this, but yeah. I mean, you're just not going to get a good night's sleep if you're not, you know, if you can't get a good night's sleep. Well, things like the importance of not pushing or pulling on the ears. A video's title under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. You know, the importance of even ears. A video under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. The natural earlobe position. A video under In The Image Clothing Company's main side. The ears, they are the jaw, essentially. The ears are just this hole between the lower jawbone, the mandible, and the base of the skull back here, this mastoid, actually, where the sternocleidomastoid muscle comes up and supports the head from the sternum and the collarbone, or the clavicle. Anyway, you know, the ears can be so altered. We've got a lot of lizard droppings where we do. I just touched that. We've got things that can alter the ears, things we place into or onto the ears, man-made things that human beings never had the possibility to place into, especially, but even onto the ears. You know, glasses sit on top of the ears. But yeah, if we alter the cartilage of the ears, we alter the position of our jaw. And if we alter the position of our jaw, we alter the position of our head, you know, and our shoulders and our spine, traveling down to our hips and out to our fingertips and the tips of our toes. The whole body, you know, if we alter the ears, physical shape. Again, the body's about a physical positioning. If we damage the ears, you'll feel like you want to sleep with a pillow. You know, you'll feel like you need an excessively soft bed. I mean, even just sleeping on the side of your head with ear cartilage that's been altered. Again, I know this out of personal experience as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, me, Evan Strong. You know, putting things into my ears to listen to music through, you know, or any kind of like technology like that. Around this time period, we've got these things that are just tens of years new, if you will. Tens of years old as of now, you know, the 4th of May, 2026. But it's I mean, you really just alter the shape of your cartilage in your ears. And this has been seen, at least this has been documented under In The Image Clothing Company content, you know, date marked under the gift of video, as I call it, which we do so much of and always will, you know, just under video, under all 4 sides of In The Image Clothing Company. But up until now, you know, there's been so much documentation of me discussing the ears. You've been able to see my ears, my jaw change, you know, as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company. And like I say, you'll see this with our team members and even with our poodles under In The Image Clothing Company. I mean, we'll breed poodles, and so our poodles we bred, they'll just stay natural, right? Letting dogs stay natural is our slogan there. Applying to all dogs with our information on In The Image Clothing Company poodles. But our team members, you know, under In The Image Clothing Company, as I say, you'll see as the team builds and then fluctuates if and where it does, you'll see their bodies transform, you know, as they start to just live the understandings of truth that we know here under In The Image Clothing Company on the only way the human body could ever work and how to allow it to. Just as you've seen with my own body as the founder of In The Image Clothing Company, Evan Strong. I mean, I couldn't make it up. You know, I don't have a claim or a sales pitch here under In The Image Clothing Company at all. I mean, that's never something we're trying to have is just something to sell. You know, we're only going to be selling things if they're useful, beneficial products that we actually need. At least we need a good product of, and we can be, you know, a company that's making that. Do you see what I mean? In addition to just giving all the free information we do and all the events in person that we do and things like this, you know. But anyway, yeah, I mean, it's going to be uncomfortable to sleep on the side of your head, on that ear cartilage that's sensitive. You know, a lot of people have physically sensitive ears, like to touch, because their ear cartilage has been so damaged, altered, you know, in its shape. And this can happen just by wearing something like an oversized top. You know, your jaw being pulled on, it just makes more of a gap between the jaw and the skull, and that's the ear. That's what that is. Just that hole in that gap is the ear canal, you know. So the cartilage can just grow excessively, and so we've got to break up cartilage, you know, scar tissue, bone spurs. But yeah, and the ears and the nose, those are some big areas too, you know. The importance of even nostrils, the importance of even eyebrows, the importance of the corners of the mouth, the importance of small utensils, you know, things like this. There's some context, some videos titles under In The Image Clothing Company's main site here, because these are the things where, you know, what you would call posture problems get stuck and held into the body is the face and the head. There's so many muscles. I mean, a lot of the muscles of the body are in the head, the skull, you know, the face of the human being, and the jaw, you know, the hands and feet. So anyway, it's these little areas that are going to either allow us to sleep well or not. But like I'm saying, if you're having a good waking life, you know, your body's functioning pretty well. You know, as long as you're intentional in waking life, if you're intentional in the same ways in sleeping life and have the understanding on how to, then, well, yeah, then you're probably pretty set, because, you know, to allow the body to work, you're probably pretty set at that point within your own individualistic situation, because the body is the same in sleeping or waking life. So yeah. Anyway, the ears, you know, well, that's the thing. You've got altered ear cartilage, you're just going to want to be sleeping with a pillow, even if you're on your back, because you can't tuck your jawbone, your lower jawbone back to straighten your spine all the way if your ear cartilage is altered and just in the way of your jaw coming back, you know. I mean, there's no opinion to it. It's just physics. It's just mathematical motion, mechanical motion. You know, I just say that so clearly each time I say it. When I say there's no opinion, the times that I do at least say like it's mathematics and it's mechanics, just because I couldn't have a claim on it. You can physically measure it. You can get out a measuring tape and measure your body's functioning. You know, the difference in hand width from left to right, or foot width from left to right, or the difference in range of rotations in the body from left and right, the difference in the size of your ear cartilage from left to right if it's been altered. This is what I'm saying. There's no opinion. It's mathematical truth. When it comes to what we're doing under In The Image Clothing Company, we don't have an approach. We just understand the body of the human being, you know. So yeah, sleeping, right? The body and sleeping versus waking life. This video's title under In The Image Clothing Company's main side, the 4th of May 2026. But yeah, like I said earlier, there's so much more that I could say in this video that I just haven't yet. Well, there's some more that I've said, quite a bit more since then, but you know, I mean, it just is what it is. There's a lot to it, man. Yeah, there is. But yeah, you know, yeah, that jaw, yeah, truly. I don't know if you could hear it that time. There's episodes of In The Image Clothing Company podcast, you know, where you can very, very clearly hear and see releases in my jaw. There was a small one right then, like a permanent release, not the way you like pop your knuckles in your hand or your back and do it again and again, but actually breaking up scar tissue. And well, it's really just grown cartilage in the ear in this case, you know. But I mean, if you can't have your jaw just have full motion because your ears are physically in the way, you're not going to sleep naturally. And this is the thing is, yeah, we are In The Image Clothing Company. You stick something into your ears, well, that's clothing, your ears. But even, you know, not only just that, like I'm saying, we discuss everything with the body that we do, even if it has just about absolutely nothing. Well, you couldn't be just about and absolutely, but even if it had absolutely, right, yeah, nothing to do with clothing, we just discuss the body of the human being in general here under In The Image Clothing Company, as if we had never worn clothing with the possibility to alter the body with it. Just how does the body work, and how do we just continue to allow it to, or get it back to its only functioning, is what we're doing here, you know, and have been since the founding. I mean, that's the point. So yeah, things like that though that you just wouldn't expect. You know, the ears are a big one. So, yeah, breathing, you know, and the temperature too. You know, you don't want to be overheating when you sleep, but also it's like being outside. Like I'm saying, there's no such thing as inside until there is. But if you're sleeping in an excessively hot room or an excessively cold room, you know, I mean, let's say you're outside just sleeping. Maybe you're camping, or maybe you just live outside. Funny, huh? Funny for reasons that it's funny. Yeah. Dante and I were homeless for the first 5 days that we got down here to St. George, Utah last Friday. Last Friday, meaning just a little over a week ago Friday, you know. You've got to allow your body to work or it can't. Just to be clear, you know, we know what we're talking about here. Sometimes you have to know this stuff. You know, sometimes you have no other option but freezing to death if you don't know how to keep your body warm. For example, in certain people's cases, you know, and things like this is all I'm saying. Like, there's no opinion to what we're doing under In The Image Clothing Company. It's not conditional to a time period or a person, or, you know, all those things I said about who it applies to. Everybody who has one. In The Image Clothing Company, you know. So anyway, just knowing all the neutrals in the body, right? Understanding there's a neutral wrist, there's a neutral shoulder height, there's a neutral rotation, internal or external, there's a neutral ankle, dorsiflexion or plantar flexion, there's a neutral pelvis, posterior or anterior, there's a neutral spine with excessive curving front to back or left to right, you know, the neutral position for the jaw, and just the whole body. You know, rotations as well from the foot up to the hip, just like the hand to the shoulder. It's the same thing. We straighten the knee between the foot and the hip, and they do the exact same thing, just like the hand to the shoulder when we straighten the elbow between the two. You know, internal and external rotation, and flexion, extension, abduction and adduction, and all the ways the body moves. The thing is, when you're asleep, is you're not going to be consciously, intellectually adjusting your body. Like you're in waking life and you're standing on an uneven surface, and you might move your feet to stand on an even surface. But if you fall asleep and, you know, end up in an unnatural position, you're not intellectually, consciously going to change your body to a neutral position. So just setting up your bed to where it's just flat and relatively firm, which is easy, you know, easier than trying to set something else up, if you will. But that's what I'm saying, is just keeping it simple, you know. It's how it's going to work the best. Just the body, you know, clothing and sleeping as one of the things as well, you know, and whatever else we could discuss. But yeah, right? Yeah. Anyway, yeah, right? Maybe that's all we say. Maybe there's quite a lot more to say in this specific video though about this, because it is the 4th of May 2026, just meaning, you know, the longevity builds credibility. And so if we have videos like this documented, which we do, you know, over 550 something as of today's date, the 4th of May 2026, under the main side of In The Image Clothing Company alone as one of our 4ths, and they're thorough and long and packed full of information like this one is. You know, most all of them are pretty lengthy, and for the sake of the bulk of the information that's within them. But, you know, then as time progresses, it's like, yeah, well, they've been saying the same things since they have been, and it's been some time now in The Image Clothing Company, you know, and so if they're still saying the same things and it's still working, then, well, that builds more validity, you know, more credibility. There's an episode of In The Image Clothing Company podcast titled That Makes It More Credible, and a lot of the things I discussed in there was the time. You know, the longer you go saying the same things and they're still valid, well, then they're still valid. You know, a lot of things after some time get found out that it was just some kind of like sales pitch or some kind of like, you know, idea or fad or something conditional to a time period, you know. And that's not the case with what we're doing under In The Image Clothing Company, because we don't have a say, you know, on how the body works. So anyway, sleeping, there you go, brother. It's the same thing as waking life. And so you're breathing, you're digesting food, you know, Yeah, I mean, just only eat the amount of food at a time that your body can really handle. You know, little but often. You know, eat a little bit of food and fairly often, rather than trying to shove a lot of food in your body at once. Same with hydration. You know, what hydration really is the video's title, under In the Image Clothing Company's main side. But we just don't want too much water in our bodies, just like we don't want too little water in our bodies. The body's just about a regulation. You know, regulating it in the human body is only normal. Between excessive anything on one end, or too little of anything on one end, you know, on the other end of the first end there. Yeah, it doesn't matter what it is we're discussing. There's just two sides to the body. You know, there's two sides to the physical functioning. There's two sides to overly hydrated or dehydrated. You know, there's two sides to malnourished or too full of food. Like I'm saying, you know, all the things like this, too hot or too cold, there's just two sides to the body. The body's about a regulation. That's how you allow the body to work, is understanding how it does so you can keep it regulated. That's all you can do to it. Adding more things to it to try to help it will harm it. It only can have the amount of things, if you will, that it can. Just like too much sleep is damaging, as is too little sleep. You know, so regulating sleep, but then regulating the body while we sleep as well. You know, not only the amount of sleep, but anyway, that's where we'll leave this. So thank you, and goodbye.